of 2 parliamentary by-elections and 2, I think, civic level by-elections. Emurua Dikirr comes up on Thursday. DCP recording impressive numbers where they did not expect. But the one in Kalou after the party primaries this past weekend creating even more discussion. What is the feeling on the ground, at least from the side of DCP, following the kind of debate you're having in Emurua Dikirr ahead of the by-election on Thursday, and what happened with the party primaries?
What I would say is that remember this country, and not only this country, the country is led by what we call leadership. And in this country, we have what we call multi-party democracy. And multi-party democracy tells that the multi-party came, it replaced a single party. Those days when it was just a single party, Kanu, which had a say. And the power to decide, the power to choose, is power based on the what we call the people. And therefore, we say the first challenge is that the people are the key because they are the sovereign, and the right to choose a candidate is theirs. So as we move to these 2 by-elections, it is true that if you will give people of Emurua Dikirr freedom to choose and give them free, fair and verifiable election where no legal mechanisms will apply, I think they will do they make their case and they will choose their candidate very democratically. And I think as of now, depending on the indicators are very clear that the competition is quite impressive, and the chances are that if people of Emurua Dikirr are given free, fair, level playing ground, they make their next choice of a candidate. The same case appears to what you call Kalou. Kalou, we witnesses 2 nominations. First on Friday led by the UDA. And we found the numbers, how they came out to make their choices. And we realized, all of us were able to witness that the first day, the queue was too short and small, and therefore the people didn't came out in numbers. And by the date of Saturday, the queues were too long, and the numbers also were very pressing. And you realize that over 23,000 voters came out to nominate their candidates. That tells you
the DCP candidate.
The DCP candidate. That tells you, it tells you what the crowd is, because ours is to assess and evaluate the crowd through those kind of forums, and it can tell you that people of Kalou were still there on Friday, but they decided to keep off. And
so you're very confident about the prospects of DCP, both in Emurua Dikirr and Kalou?
It's not me, but actually...
Based on that data?
Based on that data.
Yes.
The data is telling us there's high chances that the people of Kalou will decide, already they have decided a candidate through DCP, and I can tell you, if things will go as they are, without any state influence, things will resort to DCP candidates as a winner. The same case in Emurua Dikirr.
There's something that came out in this debate, and this is the fact that these by-elections, they do not necessarily produce what the voter wants. That a by-election mid-term is more usually about the national contests. It's about UDA and the presidency and DCP and the United Opposition, what they want, as opposed to what would happen during a general election, where focus is on individual constituencies. Do you agree that this contest, both in Emurua Dikirr and Kalou, is a contest for the big titans at the national level, and they don't even get to discuss the issues at the constituency?
Yes and no. But first of all, I want to react to what Honorable Gakuya just said.
Expound on it as well.
Yes, in such a way that people use that as an experimental ground. Different political forces go to the ground to fight. In fact, all politicians from both divides usually get involved in such processes, midterm by-elections like they did in Mbeere North. The attention of the whole country, including media houses like TV47, will be covering such events more seriously than, and very specifically from a national perspective, than they'll do during a general election. And no, because even locally there are competitions. Sometimes it will be dependent on the candidate's own strengths and weaknesses. Now, going back to Honorable Gakuya's point, which I really want to react to, is that there has been information that the processes of nomination have not been free and fair. Some of these positions have been pre-decided here in Nairobi. And if you look at the nomination process of UDA and DCP, you see that UDA was doing things exactly the way IBC would do. But if you look at what DCP was doing, they were doing the things the Kanu style, the old styles, including stuffing ballot boxes so that you end up having a lot of numbers of alleged voter turnout, which is not true. You see, that's the case. That has been the news everywhere and all over, including some acts of drama around some of the politicians, like Honorable Gakuya mentioned, one of the politicians kidnapped himself, typical of most of the DCP people. So such kinds of things are supposed to inform people that there is no transparency on the side of DCP in terms of the nomination process, as opposed to UDA. So you cannot say that the numbers of UDA were lower
was not a candidate
than DCP because he was an interested party. He
was not a candidate for
publicity. He wanted publicity around that area, including wanting to be known. You know, politicians do a lot of things, especially within the DCP ranks.
To what consequence? Because he says he's not a candidate.
I think he intends to run for a seat in future, so he wants to be known. And now we are discussing him.
So how is that assisting the credibility of an election or the coming out of voters?
I'm just trying to exemplify the kind of drama around it, including that kind of balloting, because it was pre-planned. You remember the conversation that the numbers were going to be higher than the UDA ones was projections. They did projections on the basis of what UDA.
So you're saying that the DCP party primaries in Kalou, there was ballot stuffing.
In fact, it is. In fact, the person who won that seat, he said to have been working with the Gachagua directly. So he was pre-decided. He was known to the leader of the party than those other fellows.
Do you have any fact for Amba?
That information is in public.
Because you cannot be
people who come from those areas have been sharing that information. They have been saying that individual who won the seat, who won the nomination.
So the numbers in the DCP primaries
they were inflated. They
were inflated.
They are not true. The UDA one was electronic, just the way we do with the IBC. This other one had no measures of credibility at all.
But Idimuni, I would like to say very, very short that, in fact, even in a general election, remember, we have what we call gadgets, just to make sure that the gadgets is able to establish your name and as a voter. But and stuff a ballot to a ballot box. Have we changed that format so that in the DCP or Kalou nominations, we did it opposite. We did it exactly the same, was we used what we call register, IBC register, versus now that paper ballot voting.
And the identification of voters was electronic.
Of course.
The winner was pre-decided. The numbers and projections were
You're saying it in absolutes, and I'm wondering, do you have any proof?
There's information all over, everywhere, including
that cannot be proven.
Including those people who are rigged out. That's what they have said.
We are in a state of bloggers, which can prove anything. Yes.
Wakili.
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that he owes an apology to the Kalou people, because you could see the people showed up. They turned up in their tens of thousands.
You could see them in lanes.
Yes, but by comparison, in contrast, the UDA polling stations were empty. I mean, like, look, all he needs to do is just go and review that evidence.
It depends on the time.
Hold on. I mean, I let you speak. You see, so and don't get stung. The whole issue is that the UDA brigade is unable to accept the fact that its popularity on the ground has faded It's withered and probably.
Which ground you are talking about?
Hold on,
ground in particular.
I'll let you speak, even though I wanted to let my horses on you. The whole episode of the nomination exemplifies the failure of UDA among the electorate. I mean, this is something in it. You cannot force the electorate to love your party, even though you're ruling. I mean,
so you do agree that that contest is more about the national level politics and not really about the constituents in Kalou?
Largely, because I say largely, and there's an element of the local politics, because the local politics, for instance, is all Kalou. You will see that the people who elected the DCP person had this array of choices, and they were able then to demonstrate that this is the most popular.
There are over 9 candidates who are competing.
Absolutely. You see, so the array of candidates gave the electorate the local, quote-unquote, choice, while at the same time, the voices contrasting between UDA and DCP were, visibly heard and seen. And I mean, pili sio mwasha si. Mbona hivi? Just hold your horses. Let me finish.
Yeah.
I let you speak, and you have.
I'll give you a chance.
Yeah,
I'll give you a chance.
The lessons of Mbeere North appear, in my view, not to have been learned by DCP or they who are in the opposition. Because if I were them, I would be on the lookout. Real lookout. Why? Because in Emurua Dikirr, there have been these voices that there is campaigning being done at night. And in fact, the IABC came out yesterday and said that, look, we have timelines for you to campaign. It's between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then there were those on the UDA front saying that, look, we let people work during the day, and then at night we go to excuse me? Door to door at night, you are campaigning. What if you are actually there getting their IDs and giving them money? We don't know. So that is illegal. And I think the DCP people who are, confident that their candidate is out there, high and dry, and probably given the buoyance in Kalou, and what they saw is that the figures over there. But remember, you have a wounded UDA, totally annihilated, and they feel the sting because this is nearer to 2027 than Mbeere North. And because of that, it has absolutely more significance to them. The loss in both constituencies, it will have a larger impact. And so therefore, they will go full-fledged to ensure that they do not lose. So if I were a DCP, I'd have my eyes on the ground, and I would ensure that there's absolutely no shenanigans being played out. I would even ensure that I have all the materials ready for any legal contest, if need be. Because the people are speaking there. And the UDA people go into those camps and you see them, they are leaving and then they're showing you, that is one. And they're donning the UDA attire. So as I conclude, so you can see on the ground, and this is to affirm your position, it's still that voice. Because you see, when you have at Emurua Dikirr or even in Kalou, the donning of that one finger or the flashing of the one finger, and they say one term. The
and
one
it's no
term,
longer about the constituency.
It's not about the constituency. Yeah. So let's agree about that. And so the local politics, excuse me, is being subsumed and merging with the national politics to the point that the local elector wants to send a voice resounding, excuse me, to the powers that be, that look, we want to announce to you that your candidate is sending a message to you that we still are one term.
And I have about 4 minutes only for your final comments.
Just accept that.
Final comments.
They have a very wrong perception that every time we talk about the ground, the likes of Honorable Gakuya and Wakili Kinyanjui here, think about Mount Kenya. They don't think anymore.
No. Please don't accuse me of that.
And they have been tutored very well by their party leader, Honorable
Fred,
Gachagua.
ask him to retract that.
He's the one
and
who
apologize. I'm very nationalistic.
I'm
very nationalistic.
I agree that you're nationalistic.
Yes.
But when it comes to projections and mention about the ground, you are referring to Mount Kenya.
No.
When the elections will come in 2027,
I think that should be retracted. That's not fair at all.
Retracted, but okay.
No. You cannot qualify. You just retract it because that's not fair.
He's a nationalist. He's a nationalist.
Yes.
But my argument is that every time the mention of the ground is put across is in reference to Mount Kenya.
How about
I was talking about Emurua Dikirr.
What about
It was by the way,
Emurua Dikirr.
and when they make projections,
No.
remember the other day,
That's not the
the other day of this perception that when you
No,
talk about
no. Correct
a
that.
certain village supporting a certain presidential candidate, you assume that the whole country is thinking that way. Now here's the experiment, that if you talk about Kalou in the coming by-election, it should be assumed that for DCP to look like it's making sense, they're supposed to get 100% of the vote because I've been claiming to have the mountain on their back. So if they fail to get 100% of the vote, it means that everything they have been saying is hot air. And that is very dangerous to the arrangement of the opposition, because the assumption is that the so-called ground, which is Mount Kenya in particular, the assumption by their camp is that it will go to the opposition. So if UDA manages to get any vote, and so far through the credible election nomination of UDA of over 8,000 votes in Kalou, if that is to go by, then it means that whatever the opposition is relying on in Mount Kenya is hot air.
All right.
I would completely distance myself from his sentiments, and I would want Wamba to understand that even in Kisumu, when Baba was alive, there is always votes for a contestant, whether a presidential candidate or whether who. And we have seen, even those areas, other parties winning from those regions purported to be the sole Baba areas. And in this particular case, I would like to tell you, in Kalou is no difference, because we are in a multi-party era, and you're going to find many parties, not only the DCP in the contest, and those other all those parties are campaigning to win. So you cannot tell us that we should win in 100%. You have to leave to the people to make their choices, and a win over one vote is a strong win. And I would just tell you, a failure by a single vote is a failure. So let us agree that we cannot come to demonize Mount Kenya region as if Mount Kenya is quite special. It's not part of Kenya. It is part of Kenya, and we are saying, even though, because last time you remember, we were able to secure an MCA candidate in Narok. That was not much.
But that's their argument. That's their argument.
We were able
With an ethnic
we were able,
narrative.
I have a minute, and I want you to
yes,
give your
we were also able to
So-
secure an MCA in Western region. That does not sometimes be mudsliding. That's
All right.
Unfortunately, in the political realm, they engage in these sort of personal ad hominem attacks when they lack the ideas. And you can see the president gets on the rooftop of his vehicle every other day, and he's repeating the same story and the same accusations. You know, these are fools. These are people without brains. These are people without ideas. Everywhere he goes, that's what he does. And launching a market, and he says he's launching a market for the umpteenth time, when the road that he's supposed to have done, I don't know, to Wajir, to whatever, you know, it is stuck. Even the bare maintenance of it so that it is passable, it's not something being done. So for him, it is out there, and this is the problem that we have with our politics, that we need to deliver results that are tangible to the Kenyan people, other than promising. I would rather that he didn't promise anything to the Kenyan people. Look at the Kibaki regime. The Kibaki regime, Kibaki was able to articulate ideas more in a practical sense that the Kenyans found resonating with them, and that's why they were patriotic. Just to answer Famba, because he's wondering, why aren't Kenyans, you know, acting that way? Kenyans cannot act that way because you're selling politics that is dead.
All right.
Redundant. Come on. I mean, you need to get to the people and know that this is what they want. They're not asking you to try and convince them. You already have that podium. What will you do new for them in 5 years that you haven't done for them in these 4 years that we are facing? I mean, this is the twilight of your tenure. Wind up.
All right. Let me take sample some of the views of people, because we asked online on Facebook. Do you think these mini polls, the by-elections, are a true test of public mood ahead of the next general election? And people are saying, Nicodemus Mainge Mwania says, whether true or not, the voter who voted in the 2022 election is totally different from the one who will vote next year. Awareness levels are too high, coupled with technological advancement. Wanyonyi Sa says, nope, it seems as though the true participants only come out on the actual voting day. The participants in the mini polls always show anti-government trends until the same government remains in power after the general election and leaves us wondering. Mutukutu Idiama says, not really, those are very minimal spots. Lazaro Luanda says, okay, I didn't get that one. Mukale Domi says, not at all, waves always change within no time. Those being elected now risk not being re-elected within those few months. Probably we agree. Mbwera says, no, like Mbere North, it was stolen. I don't know. Adamson, 60% yes. Onchiri Steve, kuna watu wanaongea huku online, but ikifika election day, kuna mtu wala kupiga kura. And Means Shaban says, nope. Fabiano says yes. Well, thank you so much for your feedback, and continue watching TV47 Breakfast and interacting with us on all our social media pages. Once again, thank you, gentlemen. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Fwamba, NC Fwamba, political analyst, and Wakili Harrison Kenyanjui for your time at TV47. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much.
After the break, we switch gears. Anodida will be having another conversation, including on matters health, so do stand by for that. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Good morning.